A new survey by the nonprofit Arise Detroit is shedding some light on what Detroiters think about the city's comeback and whether it's having an impact in their very own neighborhoods. Here are some highlights. 43% of the respondents felt their neighborhoods improved over the past 2 years, primarily due to an increase in homeowners and businesses. On the flip side, 18% said their neighborhoods have declined, mainly because of crime and blight. 56% have concerns about gentrification in their neighborhoods, and 88% feel hopeful about the future of their neighborhoods and about the city of Detroit. Joining me now is the man behind the survey, Luther Keith. He is the executive director of Arise Detroit, and with him is Ronald Matten, who is the CEO of Demographic Inspirations Detroit, a nonprofit that specializes in neighborhood revitalization projects. Welcome, both of you, to American Black Journal.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
So, Luther, our viewers are probably most familiar with you through the Neighborhoods Day that Arise Detroit does each year, this massive effort to clean up the city. This is a really interesting sort of companion to that, right?
Yes,
how do people feel about this?
Yes, it is, Steve. We did this in connection with our Neighborhood Summit, which we had a couple of weeks ago, which is a whole day of programs and workshops to teach people how to improve their neighborhoods. But we thought that it was a good time to kind of take the temperature of the people in the neighborhoods. And we put together a survey drawing from our network of more than 400 churches, block clubs, community groups, and asked them what they thought about what's happening in the neighborhoods. And we had over 100 responses. So while it's not a strictly scientific survey, we think it's reflective of how people feel to a great degree. So we're comfortable with the results and the fact that the results kind of like are all over the place, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which tells me that the people were taking a real critical look and were aware of what's happening around the city.
Yeah, so anything here surprised you? 43% of people in the city say their neighborhoods have gotten better in the last 2 years. That's actually a lot.
I think that's extremely significant, but people, and there has been a lot doing it. And we asked also, have you seen investment in your neighborhood or other neighborhoods? And, been a lot of talk around the dynamic of investment in Detroit neighborhoods. I really think that we've seen a lot of that in the last year, some driven by dissatisfaction in the community to a great degree. And that was interesting that we're observing that. At the same time, people feel that a lot of this investment, they don't feel like the powers that be are necessarily getting the message. We asked another question, which you didn't show in your opener, but about do you feel like the message of inclusiveness in terms of opportunity has been embraced by the powers that be, foundations, corporations, elected officials? And surprisingly, 70% said no.
Said no.
So that was an amazing thing. So I think in some way there's a disconnect there, and there has to be some education process of making the community understand that there's a connection there. But clearly people feel good about some things, but as you also indicated, there are concerns about still crime, poverty, lack of economic inclusiveness. So there's still issues to be worked on for sure.
Yeah, I think if you spend any time with people in their neighborhoods, you hear all of those things.
Right.
It's really a pretty rich spectrum. Ronald, talk about what goes into a survey like this of people all across the city.
Well, the survey was great. It expounded on a lot of matters that happen in our neighborhoods. As our organization and getting in contact with Luther Keith, we've been doing this for like 4 or 5 years, and it's given us a great opportunity to be able to do more in our neighborhoods. So on the particular day of Neighborhoods Day, we've had volunteers that have come out to help us to make sure that we get some of our projects done. So what that does for that specific target area that we are in is that it establishes a better aesthetic neighborhood than what was there before. So when you talk about the increase, that's a lot about what the increase is. But what I think that probably some of the things that should happen is that our elected officials should be more involved with what goes on the inclusion of what we need to do to continue to bring our neighborhoods up.
What have you seen? You say you've been doing this for a number of years. What have you seen in terms of change over time in the way that people feel about their neighborhoods and about the city? Is that getting better? Is it staying the same? Is it getting worse?
I think it's getting better. It depends on the neighborhood. And it takes a while for some people to catch on and see what's going on, and also to put the information out there too, to invite them to the opportunities to be able to be a part of what we do.
The gentrification issue twins with this idea of
Right.
inclusion, right?
Correct.
People feel like
Yeah.
there are changes taking place in their neighborhood, and they feel locked out of those changes.
Right, and then sometimes you feel like people getting people to understand what gentrification is. It's
Yeah.
not just people investing; it's invested with negative consequences for somebody. I personally feel that there's room for everybody. This is a big city. There's room for everybody, but it's how you come in. And clearly, if you look at some of the market rates and some of the housing and rental rates, you're seeing impact there. At the same time, I think we just had a recent announcement about projects where they're trying to make affordable housing, build that into projects where people are looking for help from the city. But again, I think there's concern. Change is always concerning. And again, people want to feel like the change is including them as part of it. And again, I think that's a message that still needs to be communicated by the powers that be, by developers. So this city is for everybody, but everybody wants to feel like that the change, that we aren't leaving people behind as we make the change.
They won't get pushed out.
Correct.
Is that
correct.
something you're seeing in neighborhoods too?
We're seeing that, but we're also looking at a different projection and how to bring together the neighborhood in itself. There's a community, what they call community land trust, which is inclusive with the neighborhood itself to bring about affordable housing. So that's a large part of our conversations right now.
Let's talk a little more about community land trust. I'm not sure everybody knows what that is. It's a really innovative way to make sure that people who are living in a community now are kind of deeded into the ownership of that community.
Well, as far as I know, I mean, I'm still, in researching and talking to some people about it. It's about the community coming together to determine what goes on in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So what happens in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood pretty much. So
one of the other significant things about this, Steve, is that this survey drew from people who are very actively involved.
Right.
And in fact, that 85% of people said they're involved in positive activities. 77% said they're involved in block clubs, churches, or youth programs. And one of the things I think Ron is reflective of that is these are people who want to get involved, want to make change. They don't want to just call talk shows and complain. These are engaged people, which I think gives them a legitimacy about people who are not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Right.
And that's what I think is another unique factor of this particular survey.
Yeah. So if you're Mayor Duggan or if you're a member of City Council, you see this survey data, what do you think they ought to take from it?
Well, I think number one, I think that there's some things to be hopeful about. And again, I don't do politics, but I do Detroit.
Right.
But I think clearly things have happened in a positive way in some of these neighborhoods. I think the mayor himself has acknowledged that the revitalization only reached 50% of the neighborhoods.
Right.
So there's lots of work to be done. We still have serious concerns about crime, poverty, and the other thing is the schools.
Right.
People feel the schools, and Nikolai Viti is making some progress there with some of the test scores, I guess, and there's some positive things going on there. But there clearly, any comeback has to be built on our performance of our schools. So it's all connected. And there's a lot of work to be done. There's no time to jump up and rest on our laurels. If anything, we should double down on what we are doing that's working and address the problems. And so a year from now, we can come back and say we've made some significant progress moving this city forward.
Ronald, what would you say
Well,
Mayor and Council ought to be thinking?
I would say even from the mayor's office to the city council is streamline pathways for organizations to be able to remove the barriers that we've been dealing with in the past.
Yeah.
And when those barriers are removed, it gives you a better opportunity to be able to create more in your neighborhood.
It's still really hard to do the things you want to do in your neighborhood sometimes.
Right. As far as I'm concerned, it's common sense. So I don't know what keeps it from happening.
But I think it's important to note that this is not their problem, it's our problem. So everybody has a role to play. The elected officials and city administration, the foundation and the Black community, which is doing a lot of great work, and the people in these churches and all these bodies. It's got to have to be a team effort to get it all done. Nobody can do it all by themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations on the work. It's really interesting, and thanks for coming by.
Okay, thank you.
All right.